Verification of death is the process of confirming the fact that someone has died. It is different to certification of the cause of death. The timely and efficient verification of death is important, and English law allows that any competent adult may verify that someone has died, but does not place them under a legal obligation to do so. Verification of death can be carried out by trained health professionals following an agreed protocol, either physically in person or by remote assessment, which is usually via video link to allow the clinician safely and quickly to verify that death has occurred. Whenever a death is suspicious, it must be reported to the police. Unexpected deaths will usually be reported to the local coroner to begin the process of establishing a cause of death. It is also important to note that where a registered medical practitioner signing the death certificate suspects that the death may have been caused by an infection acquired occupationally, they must report it to the coroner. Deaths should be registered in the district in which the death occurred. By law, a death needs to be registered within 5 days. This includes weekends and bank holidays. This does not apply if a coroner is investigating the circumstances leading to the death. The registration of the death is the formal record of the death and is done by the Registrar of Births, Deaths and Marriages, and it is a criminal offence not to register a death. The only qualified informants that can register a death are a relative of the deceased, a person present at the death, the person arranging the funeral, not the funeral director, and the manager of the home or hospital. Before you can register a death, the registrar will need a death certificate. A death certificate is either a legal document issued by a registered medical practitioner which states when a person died, or a document issued by a government civil registration office that declares the date, location, and cause of a person's death as entered in an official register of deaths. The doctor issuing the death certificate must state what they believe to be the most likely cause of death based on their knowledge of the patient, the events surrounding the death, and the medical history and any investigations available. An official death certificate is usually required to be provided when applying for probate or administration of a deceased estate. The death certificate will be sent directly from the doctor to the registrar when the death was expected due to an ongoing and incurable illness. When registering the death, it would be useful for you to bring the following: the deceased passport or birth certificate, the deceased marriage or civil partnership certificate if applicable, the deceased medical card, and a document with the deceased's usual address. Please note that you're not legally required to have these documents, but if you do, it will ensure that the registration is completed accurately. You will need to know the following information: the date and place of death, the deceased's full name and surname, and the maiden surname if the deceased was a woman who had married or formed a civil partnership, the deceased's date and place of birth, town and county if born in the UK, and country if born abroad, the deceased's occupation and the name and occupation of their spouse or civil partner, the deceased's last usual address, whether the deceased was getting a pension or allowance from public funds, and if the deceased was married or a civil partner, the date of birth and the surviving widow, widower or civil partner. If English is not your first language, feel free to ask a friend or relative to help you, but you must register the death. Upon completion of the registration, you will receive a certificate for burial or cremation, which is known as the green form, unless, of course, the coroner has already issued an order for burial or a certificate for cremation. This should be taken to the funeral director so that the funeral can take place. However, the registrar may email it directly to the cemetery service or crematorium. There is no basis in law for the mortuary or persons holding the body to require sight of the green certificate for burial or cremation to release the body. This certificate is issued to allow the funeral to go ahead and no other purpose. Anyone who is unsure about the cause of the death can inform a coroner about it, but in most cases, a death will be reported to a coroner by the doctor or the police. A coroner is a doctor or lawyer appointed by a local authority to investigate certain deaths. They're completely independent of the authority and has a separate office and staff. If a post-mortem is required to ascertain the cause of death, a death certificate will be issued after this, and the coroner will send the paperwork directly to the register office. The coroner's office will let you know that this has been done, so that you can arrange an appointment to register the death. In some cases, after post-mortem, the coroner can start an inquest into the death. This might happen if the cause of death is sudden or unexpected, or found to be not of natural causes.